Welcome to Bounce, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of product teams, the challenges they face, and the incredible stories of resilience that emerge. I'm Molly Cox, your co-host, a product designer with a knack for navigating through the storms of creativity.
And I'm your co-host, Claire Flowers, a product manager who's seen it all. The highs, the lows, and everything in between.
Each week we'll bring you tales of product traumas, those moments that test our limits, they push our boundaries, and sometimes bring us to our knees.
We're talking about career flops and follies and those pivotal moments when everything seems to fall apart.
But as we know, the harder you fall, the higher you bounce. We'll explore with our guests their toughest challenges,
The actions they took to overcome them.
and how these experiences have shaped their careers and continue to impact them today.
So join us in this journey of resilience, growth, and bouncing back stronger than ever. Welcome to Bounce. My name is Claire Flowers. I'm the co-host, joined by my co-host Molly Cox. And today we are speaking with Olivia McNaughton. She is the director of product at Grinn. Today we're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of product marketing teams, all of the highs and lows working on product teams, and really exploring the product marketing function. So welcome, Olivia. We're really happy to have you today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to chat with you guys today. Really looking forward to diving into product marketing and the relationship between product marketing and product. So yeah, really excited to chat. And just a little bit of a background, I am half British, half Kiwi. I always like to say that so that people don't try and figure out my accent throughout the entire podcast. So let's get that out there. That's where I'm from. And yes, I'm the director of product marketing at Grinn.
And fun little fact, Claire and all who may be listening, Olivia and I actually had the opportunity to work with each other in the past. So Olivia and I worked with each other in the product design and product marketing standpoint. Fun fact, one of the biggest misses of my life was Olivia and I were in Las Vegas together. She went to the Eras Tour. I did not. I regret it to this day. So, deep regret on my behalf.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight. Went alone to Taylor Swift.
Well, see, it was my daughter's birthday, so I couldn't fly in that day. I know. And it was like a 9-year-old's birthday, so it wasn't even, I mean, anyone who has kids knows 9 isn't anything spectacular. I don't even remember what the birthday party was, so I guarantee you I would remember the Eras Tour, however.
Yeah, that's an unforgettable moment for sure, but I'm sure she appreciated having you there. So
I'm sure she does as well. But if she actually did find out that I missed it for her birthday, she'd probably be mad at me for not having gone there as opposed to her birthday, to be honest. So.
Yeah, you might have gotten canceled as a mom for a short period of time.
Yes, totally.
Olivia, for our listeners out there who maybe aren't as familiar with the product marketing realm, can you share a little bit about just your background and how you landed in the product marketing function today?
Yeah, absolutely. So product marketing, it's definitely one of those roles that has really risen in the past like 5 or so years. But it can be quite different at different organizations. For me, product marketing is really being a go-to-market specialist. So supporting the product team, the sales team, the customer success team, sort of being the central piece that connects all of those functions to help do really 2 things. We can simplify it to 2 things. One is help launch products that the product team are working on into the market. And then 2, funnel information from the market back into the product team. So what are sales hearing on the front line? What is CS talking to customers about? What are competitors doing? What's happening in the market? And really synthesizing that information and funneling it back into the organization. So information out and then information in, and we really sit central to that. Is that similar to how you guys have experienced product marketing at your organizations?
It is for me. Although, again, and we'll get into this in just a little bit, I'm sure, but it's always kind of a weird thing is where does product marketing live, right? So yes, in regards to market, for me, product marketers are always really kind of there in that finding product market fit really in the beginning, in that early discovery stage, but then also once we get to that launch phase, really working on that side of the spectrum as well. So almost kind of to some extent the bookends of our development
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And I want to compliment you, Olivia, in distilling that down. I think that it makes a lot of sense. Pretty simple, right? But actually it's not. It is actually, when you are being integrated into product management, into design, and understanding where everybody sits and where everybody plugs in. Have you found that while the description of the function is pretty straightforward, makes a lot of sense, when you have joined teams in the past, have you found that it's hard to really put pen to paper and figure out what everybody on the team does? Or can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yes, you're so right. Simple in practice in when we say it out loud, but actually doing it can be extremely complicated. And like I said, it differs from company to company. Sometimes product marketing will sit under product, and sometimes it will sit under marketing. It can even sit under strategy. So in my career, I've always sat under marketing. So that at least simplifies it there. But where it gets interesting is who is owning what within an organization, and how new is the role of product marketing. When you're entering an organization where product marketing already exists, is already established, there's probably some ownership already. So there's some clear sort of delineation between what is product owning, what is product marketing owning, and then what is marketing owning as well. But when you enter an organization where that isn't the case, when you are the first PMM, you're the first person in that seat, you really have to define those lanes. And it can cause a little bit of, discomfort between product and between, even product design and marketing, because you're having to find your way. And there will be some roles that product has been doing previously that now it makes sense actually for a product marketer to start taking on, to free them up to focus on things and allow product marketing to sort of support and help. So it's definitely one of those roles that can take a little bit of time to figure out. And so you really have to enter the organization and see what is the state today, what is the understanding of product marketing today, and as a product marketing leader, where do you want to take it? Where are the opportunities to really help product marketing thrive within an organization and be of great value?
You just said a little bit ago that most of the places that you have been, product marketing has been on that marketing side of things. Now, being on a product team directly, I will say from my perspective, and Claire, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you feel differently, but I feel when PMMs are on the product team, they are more, sometimes the saying out of sight, out of mind, right? If you're not on the product team, all of a sudden you're kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so I feel like being on the product team itself, that's how we exist today, where Claire and I are. Product marketers are directly part of the product org. I've also seen, however, when they're part of the marketing org, again, it almost feels a little more clunky trying to get that relationship between the three of us all to get that alignment is missing a little bit. Yeah. But I'm curious your perspective though, because you are crossing two thresholds, right? You're in marketing and you're in product. If you're on the marketing side, do you feel as though sometimes it's a miss from product and you're not as involved as you should be? But if you're on the product side, then does marketing see you as even a marketer from their perspective? So it's this, talk about that chasm for us just a little bit.
There is a chasm, and there will be a chasm, and that's where you really have to build in processes and sort of you have to wedge your way in. So I can talk about an experience where product marketing really was thought of as an afterthought. And as I mentioned, I was on marketing, and PMM was thought of as an afterthought. So it was like, here is a product that is pretty much already formed. Here you go, product marketing, go and launch it. And it was such a reactive model where the team was then having to understand, okay, why did we build this? What does it do? Who's it for? Then build a go-to-market plan, and then, get it out the door and work with marketing to launch it. So how it has shifted is now product marketing is part of a pod structure, and I've loved this. This has been a game changer. So now within every sort of pod, there is a product manager, a product designer, an engineering lead, and that was initially what the sort of pod looked like. And now there's a product marketer on that pod. So that means PMM is involved from the very beginning. And what, idea conceptualization from, what are the problems? Like PMM is in the room. We're hearing it as soon as the product designer is hearing it, as soon as the engineering manager is hearing it. So we're all hearing it at the same time. And that has really allowed us to sort of close that gap. So yes, while we still sit on product, we're almost like, tied to the product team through this pod structure. And it's really being able to close that and solve a lot of the pain points of here's a product, now go and launch it.
That's interesting you say that because I feel in product, you always hear this. We talk about the three-legged stool, right? So there's really these three leaders to the product development process, and it's the engineering lead, it's the product manager, and it's the product designer. Actually, at Fleetio, where we are, we've been talking about calling it the quad force, where you have the three of those, but you also need that PMM lead, right? Yeah. So, but I've also found and Claire, I know you want to get into friction too. Claire loves gripes and friction. I'm gonna look at that face. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even in that friction of being, you're talking about being embedded in pods. What I have also found though is in that discovery process, I feel like sometimes with PMMs and designers and PMs, who does what? Like all of a sudden, like we're all trying to be the voice of the customer. We're all trying to like do the research. We're all trying to figure out these things. So how does that friction feel as a PMM?
Yeah, it's something that to this day, is still a question that pops up. Like who is speaking with the customer? Who is doing that research and bringing those insights to the team? And, I think there are places where there are, levels of ownership and research that should be done by certain people. But also at the same time, I believe that product managers should speak to the customer just as much as PMM should speak to the customer. I think it shouldn't just be one role that's doing that. So I'm very much a big advocate for everyone being able to speak to the customer depending on what the needs are. However, one thing that I found really valuable to do, and something that I do when I enter a team, is build something called a how we launch framework, which really starts from the very beginning of like what is launch language? I think that's a good place to start. What's a release versus a launch? What's a beta versus early access? Making sure that we're aligning on the basics, like the launch language. Next is, what is a release versus a launch in terms of, do they equal the same thing? And in my opinion, no. Sometimes we might want to release something to the customer, but we might not want to launch it. We might want to bundle certain features and then launch it for impact. Or we might want to build hype before officially releasing a product. So really aligning with the product managers, with the, even engineering, what are those sort of like definitions? Then is like launch tiers. So what's a tier 1 launch, a tier 2, and a tier 3 launch? Tier 1 being like a big splashy launch that might include videos and PR. Maybe a tier 2, slightly smaller, might just be news articles and emails. And then tier 3 would be like in-app notifications. So having these tiers that everybody knows, okay, what's the lead time we need for a tier 1 versus a tier 3 launch? How early do we loop in certain people for a tier 1 versus a tier 3? And then next is like, what is the process and who are the stakeholders that need to be involved? And what are the like levels of ownership and responsibility for each of those stakeholders? I think having that framework that everybody is aligned on, that everybody feels strongly about, and that contributes to even building it, I think that is what can really help with those like levels of ownership and who does what, and ensuring people aren't stepping on each other's toes as well. So I think having that as an alignment doc is something that can mitigate a lot of those questions down the line of like, should PMM do this or should PMs do this, and so forth.
The one thing that you said this really important is and it's so basic, but just defining what the words mean. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, we're releasing this on this date, and then people are like, okay, we're releasing it, but what are we doing around, are we launching it? And I'm like, so I've literally started in my documents release date and when PMM is telling people about it.
Yeah.
Those are different dates.
Completely different dates. And I think that's the thing. It's like you'll see product go, oh, we're releasing something, and then you'll have, the head of sales being like, well, where's the social post and where's the news article? And it's a different date. That's the launch date. We call that the launch date. You guys might call it something else, but those simple definitions can just clear up a whole world of confusion.
Oh my gosh. It really can.
Yeah.
When PMM is telling people about it.
Well, to that extent, though, I've talked to a lot of PMMs along my way. And I know that there are certain friction points, even just between PMs and PMMs and PDs, like the designers and PMMs, in that sometimes product changes and you're not brought along on it, and design changes and you haven't been brought along on it. What are some of the friction points that you see between product managers and PMMs very specifically?
Why are you calling out product managers, Molly?
Well, because I don't want to talk about designers. I think we're great. We work with PMs so good.
All right, we'll start with the PMs.
Don't worry, I'll self-deprecate. I'll get to the designers soon.
Yeah, friction. So I think you're so right. Like, things can change, and I think firstly, as a PMM, we just have to learn a level of like flexibility, because things are going to shift. Like, we might have this perfectly orchestrated plan, and then something doesn't go quite right. The product's not quite ready. Maybe we need an extra week. So firstly, I think as PMMs, we just have to learn to be flexible and be okay with that. But I think one area of friction that does pop up is the release timeline. Like, who sets the release timeline? Is it product managers say we're going to release something on this date? Or is it PMM that says we're going to, release something or launch something on this date? And I think that can be a big area of friction that, frankly, I think just needs collaboration between the two. Because if you're going to release something, but we are weeks away from being ready to, have all the help articles and assets organized and ready, maybe we want to wait and be ready for that. Or maybe PMM is like really gung-ho to launch something and it's not ready from a product perspective. So I think that's an area of friction that can come up between PMs and PMMs, is like the timelines, the launch dates. But in my view, it has to be something that both parties are aligned on and that know about. And if anything changes, that it is communicated to all parties.
I've definitely been in some arguments about dates and timelines. And I don't want to speak for all product managers, but I think that a lot of times the timeline for getting something out can be stuck on the product manager, and we have different motivations for when we want to release something for all different reasons. A lot of times where you'll see a product manager wanting to get something out sooner than maybe PMM is ready is because they want to get the learnings. And so I find that often when there is friction around a date, it's product marketing, rightly so, doesn't want to look like we have egg on our face by releasing a not half-baked solution, but product management is like, no, it's good enough. We need to get it out there so that we can not over solution. We can learn, we can iterate. But I think that those two things are a key friction. I've observed a key friction point is product management wanting to get something out so that they can be testing and learning and planning. And then product marketing saying like, no, we're going to look like idiots.
Yeah. It's like the whole surprise, it's launch day or release day. And we're like, oh shit, we don't have anything. We're not there. We're not ready. But you're right. There is such a value to testing things before launching them as well. Like, I actually really enjoy releasing a product, seeing how it performs for a few weeks, and then doing the actual, launch of it. Because during that period is where you can pick up a lot of learnings, what's working, what's not working. Maybe we need to tweak some messaging here and there. And we need to speak with some customers. What do they love about it? You can even get like testimonials during that period of time of customers who love it and want to rave about it. So I think that's where it comes to just, again, being flexible and being able to adapt on a need by basis.
Do you find that there's any like existing cultural dynamics on any given team that kind of set these like key functions up to butt heads? Like, maybe you're in an organization where they really want to like ship fast and they're trying to meet certain goals and they're not really concerned about quality, but one team is like very concerned about quality and not aligned on timelines. Have you experienced any type of friction points around that?
I think yes, because oftentimes in my experience, it's come from a sales perspective, where sales, obviously, they want to be able to tell prospects what's coming down the line. Even customer success, they want to be able to tell customers what is on the roadmap. And once you've put that into the sales hands or the customer success hands and given them a date, they're going to stick to that. They're going to sell that. They're going to tell customers, oh yeah, it's coming. Honestly, if you tell them it's coming in 2 months, they're going to tell them it's coming in 1 month. And that puts pressure then on PMM and on product to move quickly and get things out the door. And then if things slip or if something comes up that means we can't hit those dates, then you have the sales team and the customer success team that feels silly because they are now promising things to customers or prospects that aren't quite ready yet. And then you can lose that trust. So I feel like that is a cultural thing that can cause some pressure and some friction points. And that's why I think when it comes to sharing the roadmap, there are ways to do it in a way that doesn't overpromise. Like, firstly, specific dates. Like, I avoid giving specific dates to the sales team or the CS team unless I know for sure that that's like next week. It's like next Tuesday. Okay, we can probably say that. But I'm not going to say this is going to come, in 27 days from now. I'll probably round up. I'll probably give buffer room. I'll say it's coming within the next 2 months. That gives everyone a little bit more space and time to, flex and to be okay if things are delayed. So yeah, I think it's sharing the roadmap is what can cause a bit of friction.
Even, yes, sharing the roadmap and in what format you need to share the roadmap and when it's available. And that, I think that could be such a huge topic. I also want to ask you, given that we've had discussions around a lot in some organizations, people don't understand the role of product management. What is the product manager supposed to do? Are they a project manager? Are they supposed to be working on strategy for design? It's like, what do you mean you need 3 weeks for discovery? What are you going to produce? And for PMM, kind of similar thing. Have you found that while at the same time you're carving out your place on the team and defining roles, what about like really kind of like proving value as a team member? I think that for product managers, they want to, they're really concerned about, the adoption of feature or achieving certain metrics. For product marketing, like what are the key things that for how your team like really proves value essentially? And do you find that it's like hard to like have those conversations?
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions around product marketing. And I think one thing that's hard is there's no definitive metric that we can measure product marketing by. There's no one size fits all metric. And so it can be quite hard to prove the value. And so for me, it's always been around like building influence within an organization. Once you can do that, once you can prove the value, then PMMs can be hyper impactful within an org. We can, support on the roadmap. We can shape positioning and messaging. We can drive alignment between sales and marketing. And then we can even get into places where we're advising on pricing and packaging, acquisitions that we should do, partnerships that we should pursue. So getting to a point where PMM is looped into these conversations is where I go, okay, we've done a good job at proving our value, but to that point is like, how did you get there? So there's a few things I think that are pretty fundamental. The first is establishing credibility, and that's like showing that you know what you're talking about and acting as a trusted thought partner and being generous with the information and the knowledge that you're sharing with all of the different teams that you're working with. You have to know what you're talking about to be a trusted thought partner, and that requires a lot of research, understanding the customer, competitor, market, etc. I think the next is like understanding and catering to your audience, like deeply understanding internal stakeholders, so sales and product, CS, and like what are their needs or pain points? Like what is keeping Claire up at night? What's keeping Molly up at night? What's keeping the sales leader up at night? And being able to show them that you understand what their pain points are and supporting them through your communication, your content, and the support that you provide. Next is like over communicating and educating internally. I think one of the biggest benefits with product marketing is we work so cross-functionally, but what that means is that people on the product side might not understand what we do on the marketing side or on the sales side. So the key is to communicate like extremely well with all parties to ensure that they know what you're doing across each team. Otherwise, you can work in silos. Like you guys are only going to see what we're doing with you on the product front. You might have no clue what's happening over on the sales side with product marketing. So you have to communicate like super, super well. And then the final piece, and it might feel a bit weird, but it's just showcasing success, like actually advocating for yourself, and more importantly, as a leader, advocating for your team and making sure that they're visible, that they're seen. I always say like my team's success is my success. Like I want my team to be thriving. So how can I raise their profile, raise their reputation within the organization? Like the PMM overseeing reporting should always be the one talking about reporting, showcasing it in all hands, looped into the conversation. So how can you like raise the profile of PMMs on Slack, in public forums? And I think that all of those things in combination is what really can elevate PMM within an org. But as you can see, like that's a lot of things you need to do. It's not easy. And it is one of those roles you just constantly have to prove the value. And you're lucky if you have somebody who is a leader who really understands the value of PMM. And I've had that before where a CRO loves PMM, gets it, and we automatically get looped into things and we automatically are sort of supported. But I've also had the inverse where I am having to fight for my team, fight to, be in rooms and really showcase what we can do and how we can support. So it depends on the organization and the leaderships that you have above as well as to how easy or hard it can be as a product marketer.
Listen, if as a product designer, there is one thing we know, that is proving value. I mean, we're literally told to our face, what do you do here? Right. So I totally get it. But I also imagine, from my perspective as a product designer, I go to a new org or a new place and it pretty much functions how it should be. I mean, there's obviously little minute differences between how one organization does it versus another, but I can imagine in product marketing, it's probably vastly different and wildly different, or can be. Have you had those moments where you've walked into a new place and you're like, what is this function? This isn't even product marketing, right? And what do you do in those situations?
Yes, I definitely have walked in, and it's been really hard for the product marketers that are already there. And in that instance, I mean, again, I spoke about the how we launch doc. That is one of the first things that I will do, and is ensure that I talk to the product leader, I talk to the marketing leaders, and really see what's happening today and how is PMM being looped in. Building that doc is really great. Another thing that I found to be really helpful at every company, this has been something that has either been there or I've personally implemented, and that is a go-to-market all hands that is led by product marketing. I entered one organization, and every time there was a product release, there would be an ad hoc meeting put on the calendar for all of sales, all of CS. It was very random. You never knew when it was going to happen. And it was quite disruptive, frankly, to, your week or your month. So the go-to-market all hands is a monthly meeting with PMM, product is there, product designers, and all of the go-to-market teams. So sales, CS, and marketing. And this meeting is used for a couple of purposes. One, to showcase wins, like sales wins, CS wins, to like heighten the mood, get everyone excited. Then sharing what are the new product releases that are coming out or have come out already, and ensuring everybody is up to speed on what is happening from a product perspective. Next is sharing what is coming next, the product roadmap. And then finally, what are some sales, new sales collateral, competitive insights and updates, or case studies that are new, anything that you can arm the go-to-market team with. And having this as a monthly recurring meeting has been an amazing way to showcase the value of PMM and product, and highlight and celebrate the things that product are doing within an organization. B, or is that C, be able to really ensure that everybody is on the same page from a product perspective and is aligned with what's coming out and knows how to speak to it, knows like what the value is. And then 3 is just really elevating the profile of product marketing. And I think that has been something that has really cemented product marketing in the organizations that I've worked in, because suddenly they know, okay, Nidhi is the go-to person for this type of feature. If I need to, ask about competitive intelligence, Emily has all of the intel on this competitor. And they then become go-tos. They become the sort of people that the rest of the organization knows is a resource. So that's something I've loved doing. Do you guys have something similar? Is that something you've seen before?
We have like a kind of right now a competitive and intelligence meeting separately. Then we have like a product all hands. I know go to market has their own, but so we don't necessarily have what you're describing right now, but I love this because it also brings together all of these cross-functional roles that are responsible for all these different facets and area within the product being launched. And so often I feel like in organizations, when you have sales and you have onboarding and then you have product, we get so siloed from one another. And that's where that miscommunication really happens. And you talk to one team and they're like, I don't know when this is coming down the pipeline. Another one's like, I don't know either. Like, I guess we'll wait for a developer to tell us, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like this format that you've put into play, I love it because it gives that thought leadership. People know who they need to go to, and then they know what to expect every month, and everybody is in communication about what's coming down the pipeline. Oftentimes I feel like the roadmap can fall out of our brains so quickly and so easily. So I love that. Claire, have you encountered that in the past?
Yeah, what sticks out to me is what I've noticed is when it's a concentrated meeting and product managers are presenting, we can often get like way too in the weeds in the metrics of things that like we really understand, but we're not always the best like storytellers or understanding the audience. And that's where like personally working with PMMs has really been super helpful, because they always bring me back. They reel me in. They're like, nope, nobody cares about what you're saying right now. Like they want to know about this. And I think that perspective has always been extremely helpful. Like they don't care about the, these intricate details that I think are important, but at the end of the day, they're just not. So I mean, the meeting that you're describing, actually, it's like, it sounds like 4 of our meetings condensed into one, but giving the right message.
Right.
The distinct
at the
right
same
message
time too, to everybody. So there's no Like there's no misinterpretation, there's no differences. It's very consistent. What everybody's hearing, you're hearing it at the same time. And then if we need to, like we will jump into a sales all hands and we'll tailor it a little bit further for sales, or we'll tailor it a little bit further on a customer facing, a customer success facing all hands. But it allows us to just get the message out to everybody at the same time. And then we always send a follow up with, you know, the key points and the key things to remember and any like assets or collateral that we talked about. So yeah, I've really found it to be valuable. And I think it also helps, you know, showcase what PMM is a lot better, because it's visible.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to go back just a couple steps to give Claire some justice here. So I want to go back to friction just a little bit and ask you about potential friction you've run into with product designers. I mean, I know we're charming, we're amazing to work with. Very rarely does anyone have friction with designers. So from your perspective, where do those two roles maybe sometimes run into each other?
Well, firstly, Molly, you're so right. So charming. It's very, very frequent.
I know.
However,
thank you for agreeing.
Of course, of course. I would say, honestly, less so. I will admit that less so is there friction between PMM and product design. I think, though, that stems from sometimes there not being as close enough of a relationship between product design and product marketing, where we might not be looping each other into certain things, which I think in itself is a bit of a friction point, right? Because we're not always working as closely together as we should. I think the only instance I can think of is like when a design is shared, and sometimes we'll just have opinions on, you know, maybe the UI or the flow of things. But at the end of the day, I think for the most part, I would love as a PMM to be looped in more into the design process. But I don't always feel like we have the opportunity to be looped into the design process. So that would be the biggest friction that I find, is actually a lack of interaction sometimes.
And I would agree wholeheartedly with that. I think so many times I've onboarded new designers into the team, and some of them have never even been exposed to PMM. I mean, you know, if you've been a designer but not necessarily in SaaS or other areas, they're like, everyone knows what a PM is, but what the heck is a PMM sometimes, right? And other organizations will actually call them things. And so I sometimes sense a little, not fear, but hesitation from designers, because we simply don't know what the PMMs do. So I'll let you do you let me do me, and we'll call it a day, right?
Yes.
But 9 times out of 10 with new designers, and we're in the same type of model, Olivia, we have PMMs embedded within our pods.
Yeah.
Or like working directly with those pods themselves. Most of the time, new designers will say, wow, I never knew like all the things a PMM does and like how well we work together. And they have so much information that helps me in discovery. So it's just really getting that out of that shell. And I agree, like those two parties very specifically getting a little closer. And I will say, from the design perspective, we get a little jealous sometimes. I see the PMs and the PMMs always like having little chats all the time. We're like, well, what do you want to talk to us? Because we are charming, right? Obviously. But I do find that I would agree, from my perspective, I think the lack of relationship oftentimes becomes the biggest friction point.
Yes.
Claire, would you see that similarly from your perspective?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I find all the PMMs I've worked with, them being integrated into the pods, when we're looking at it at a design, without fail, the PMM will come and just ask these amazing questions. And I'm not surprised, but I'm like, gosh, how did we miss that? Because I think that a lot of times the product manager is really evaluating like technical feasibility, which then can hinder the design a little bit because we're working with certain constraints. And so we end up with this solution that we're kind of fitting for technical feasibility for whatever reason. And then product marketing will come in and be like, well, so what? what, the user's trying to do this and you're doing it like this? What? And those are always like really good moments to like bring us back out of our heads and bring it back to the customer. So we should include PMMs more in the design process.
Great takeaway, Claire. To that extent, Olivia, I'm curious too. Launches are a stressful thing, right? In looking back through all the launches that you've done in your career, what do you find the biggest stress points, and how, as product managers and product designers, can we be better partners to you in those times and help you through those stressors as a product marketer?
Ooh, product launches, yes. I mean, they are the best part of being a product marketer and can also be the most stressful part, without a doubt. I think probably the biggest stressor is the stakeholder alignment. I've worked on launches where there have been 20, 30 plus stakeholders, even stakeholders from other companies if you're doing like an integration launch. So aligning all of the stakeholders can be probably the most challenging part, ensuring every stakeholder knows what you're launching, why you're launching it, the dates, the timelines, all of the different assets that you're going to create, the channels that you're going to use. So I think, and back to what I was saying earlier, and then when a date changes, and then having to communicate that out to all of these stakeholders, that can be one of the most challenging parts and most stressful parts of launching. So I think the best thing is when you're working with a product manager, product designer, where you are just so in lockstep, and and it's okay if a date changes, you're the first to know, and you can be able to communicate that, jump on that quickly and make the necessary changes. That's when doing a product launch can be so much fun and so rewarding as a team. Nothing is better than launch day, when you get to like push it out into the world and really sit back and take a sigh of relief with the people on the launch pod or launch team. So I think that's the biggest thing, just being in lockstep and making sure that everyone feels bought into the launch plan as well. Like, people have to be excited about not just what you're launching, but how you're launching it too.
For sure. Sorry about that. As we're speaking, mowers decided to pop up right at my window today. So let's see. I know we're kind of coming up on time just a little bit, Olivia. To wrap up, Claire, do you have any questions that your burning desire to know from Olivia?
Is there anything that you want any cross-functional team member to stop doing as it relates to your role? Whether it's a product manager, a designer, a engineer, a salesperson, a CS person, is there anything you want them to just stop right now? Stop doing it. That will make your life easier.
Oh, yes. There are a few things that really pop to mind. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about product marketing is that we're there to make decks pretty. Like, you better believe we do make a hell of a good deck. However, our skill set definitely goes beyond that. And I think, what people don't realize is it's taking all of this information. It's a culmination of all of these things that are tactfully distilled down into key takeaways. Like, that is ultimately the deck process. But when we're just given a deck and told to make it pretty, that is something that does hurt my soul. Another thing is, like, from sales, them just being like, I need a one-pager. Again, like, okay, do you need a one-pager? Does the entire sales team need a one-pager? Is it for like a very particular niche use case, or is this something that you're going to use, every day, every week? So I think that's the other thing that I think most PMMs can say they would love to stop happening is just getting asked to make a one-pager, but instead being told maybe the problem And then we can help you figure out a solution to that problem. Because maybe it's not a one pager. Maybe it's you need a battle card. Maybe it's you need enablement. Maybe it is a deck. We'll make you a pretty deck. But like being looped into more of the problem than just being told like, hey, can we have a one pager? And then the final thing is probably people saying PMM can do it. There's so many times where it's like, and this is a good problem to have, don't get me wrong, where, you know, they know you're cross-functional, they know you can get stuff done. So if there's something that pops up, PMM can do it, they'll do it. But if PMM does it and then they do this and that, it's suddenly PMM is overloaded with these projects. So it's always not just like, can PMM do it, but should PMM do it? Is this actually something they should do? Or is it maybe something that a sales manager or a sales enablement person should do it, or a product manager? So I think those are the three things that really pop to mind of things that I think a lot of PMMs will resonate with.
I like it. You heard it here first, listeners. I hope you're paying attention.
Well, and my eyes went like saucers when you said deck building, because as the designer, you know, if we understand anything about somebody thinking we just make things pretty, just build this, just make this and make it pretty. It's so frustrating. So
just I get college, right?
If I had $1 for every deck I've built in my career.
Look, I am a whiz with Google Slides. I really am, but you know.
But should I be doing this?
That's what I've learned. Should I be doing it is the question. Should we do it? But yes, that would probably be the only thing. Look, it's such a fun role though. It really is a fun role because every single day can look different, and all the projects you get to work across, the teams, the people, it really is a great career, and I've loved every minute of it. I've done it throughout my whole career. I've actually never been anything but a product marketer. So,
well, thank you so much for your perspective today, Olivia. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and it was really great to connect with you. And yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored that you wanted to chat, Molly. It was so nice to be able to chat again. And
you also, Olivia.
We had a great time together working, and maybe we can go to Taylor Swift again at some point.
Well, we're going to have to, because now TTPD is on the Eras Tour, and obviously now we have to go again. So, in my case, the first time. But I'll let you know the next concert I go to, and you can fly and meet me this time.
You let me know. I'll be there. No doubt.
Perfect. All right. Appreciate you, Olivia. Awesome talking as always. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you both.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you'd like to connect with us, check out our website at bouncepodcast.com.